Welcome back to another episode of the Mom Founders Table. And today we are continuing with our identity series. So if you missed the episode last week, that's okay. We want to make sure that you do listen to all three of these episodes because these are powerful and will change your mindset, change your perception, and truly change your life if you apply the things that we talk about in this 3-part series. So reclaiming your identity, finding out who you are outside of your business, outside of your titles that you are wearing. This is the thing that we struggle with the most as moms and entrepreneurs. And so last week we talked all about how to get back what you have sacrificed to get where you are right now. And I completely understand with 14 years as an entrepreneur, the things that we give up, the things that we put to the back burner, all of the stuff that gets deprioritized because we prioritize our business, which is why today we're talking about how to get rid of this business first mentality. So with a business first mentality, what we're recognizing is that when we go back to the start of your business, you started in a place where you were feeling restricted. You wanted to make the rules and you wanted to create your life and your business to work together. And what happens, again, is because we have what is called the fear loop. That's what I refer to it as. And I'm going to get more into that in just a second. But the fear loop takes you from one kind of fear to another kind of fear. And that is why we get stuck in this business first mentality. But if we go back to your starting days and why you built your business, why you became an entrepreneur, it wasn't so that you could spend all of your spare time working. It wasn't so that you could grow your family and then not spend any time with them. It wasn't so that you could stack your bank account and feel this financial freedom only then to be able to not be present when you are actually utilizing that financial freedom, be that on vacations or in situations where you're there and your proximity is close, but your presence isn't. And that's where so many women get stuck because there is no way for us to not think about our businesses. Let's be honest. They are important to us. They are how we put food on the table. It is how we create the financial abundance that we want to live the lives that we want. And so when you are living your life, walking around unable to disconnect from your email, from your Slack channels, from your business, when you are staring at your children and thinking about all of the things on your to-do list, it really creates a lack of enjoyment and a lack of fulfillment because we are putting the business first, but we forget to stop and ask, why are we doing all of this? What are we building it all for? And my clients come to this realization to where, wow, I reached that milestone and the next milestone and the milestone after that. I've done things that I never thought were possible. I've made them happen. I've created and have all of or most of the external things that I ever wanted. And yet I feel nothing. Yet I feel like something's missing, or yet I feel like I'm still chasing. And so I want to first talk about how we know that we are living in a business first mentality. So one of the biggest problems that is recurring that I see is that every decision that you make revolves around your business. This means that when something in your life happens, even if it's something that you want to do, say you get invited somewhere and you're like, oh, that's a work day for me, or that's a day that I have this. And while we have to complete our responsibilities to the business, if we are planning our lives around our business versus planning our business around our lives, that showcases our priorities. So one of the things that I do at the beginning of the year is I actually pull out my kids' school schedule. I pull out just the regular schedule, and I sit down and I block off time off. Time off when my kids are out of school for things like spring break, time off for my husband and I to have vacations without our kids because we prioritize that for our marriage. I do that at the end of the year for the next year. And that way I know that there is spaces where not only am I going to be able to give myself a break, but then it allows me, when I'm planning for the business, to plan around those things. And so it's a difficult shift because you start to think about, well, what if something comes up that week, or what if somebody needs me, or all of these thoughts that we have, and just know that that's normal. But in shifting to a life first mentality and building a life first business, these are the kinds of uncomfortable things that we have to put in place and sit through. So if every decision that you make revolves around the business, if you find that you can't show up for certain things that you want to, including yourself or your family, because of your business, if you find that you are checking in with your to-do list before anything else, these are signs that you probably have a business first mentality. Another thing that I see really frequently is that you feel so guilty when you're still, when you're resting. We have this idea of always being productive. How can we be more productive in less time? How can we be more efficient in less time? And truthfully, this is important, especially for moms, because in a day, we have less hours because we have other responsibilities. The reality of that is that it puts us in overdrive because we're always doing something for somebody or something else. So then when we sit, or we're craving rest, or we try to rest, then we have these thoughts of, I should be doing something. There's so much to do. I could be doing this. What if I fall behind? What if I miss out? And those types of thoughts keep us, because we act from our thoughts, those type of thoughts keep us running back to productivity, keep us in the hustle and the grind of pushing, with the idea that if we push hard and far enough, that once we reach a milestone, then we can rest. But we forget that we are wiring ourselves for productivity. We are wiring ourselves to believe that we are only valuable and only feel good when we are productive. So if you feel guilty when you're resting, if you feel guilty when you're not being productive, if you feel guilty when you take time off, understand that this guilt is coming from having a business first mentality. Another problem that I see very frequently is normalizing a certain level of reactivity. And what I want you to know about reactivity is that reactivity is what eats your peace alive. Being reactive rather than being responsive comes from a place of not having the spaciousness or the margin to think and process to be able to adequately respond. This is why when I talk about decision making, we have a decision making process that we go through where we're looking at your values, your priorities, and your goals. But if we're constantly reacting because there's so much being thrown at us that we're just trying to deflect it or get rid of it as quick as possible, be that in the business or in our homes, because it happens both places, this is keeping us in a heightened state of stress and anxiety. That heightened stress and anxiety takes away our ability to feel or experience peace. So being reactive, something triggering you, and then instantly yelling or feeling like, I just saw a message, I have to respond right now, that sort of heaviness in our bodies and in our minds can overtake us. So if you have normalized, like if you think through your day-to-day conversations and you're just firing things off quickly to just get it done and move on to the next thing, if you are yelling at your partner or your kids, you're being short with your team, you are not thinking before you speak, this tells us that you're being reactive. And that reactivity likely comes or is a part of having a business first mentality. Because we're so afraid that if we're not constantly moving things forward, again, in our minds of what that looks like, that we're falling behind. So whether you're making decisions based upon your business only, whether you're feeling guilty when you're not being productive, or whether you've normalized being consistently reactive, all of these things, or a combination of these things, are going to be part of having a business first mentality. So I want to revisit what I said at the beginning about the fear loop. The fear loop is when we step into entrepreneurship, there is two types of fear that keep us in a loop. The first fear is scarcity-based fear. When you start a business, you need money. You need to bring revenue in the door to pay for your expenses and ideally pay for you and your lifestyle. This scarcity-driven mentality is what pushes us to hustle, to grind, to get things done even when it feels hard. It feels like it's a good fear. It feels like, well, I can't give up because I have to do X, Y, and Z. So it serves you in the building phase. It serves you because it pushes you to conquer some fears without even recognizing that you're moving from a place of fear, from a place of scarcity. What happens is then when we reach a point to where we are abundant financially, to where we have built something that is established and it is providing for us and our families, then we move to another fear. We move to the fear of losing it all. We move to the fear of feeling like if we slow down or if we do anything differently than the way that we were previously doing it, that we will lose it. And we know we've worked so hard to build it that we don't want to lose it. So the fear loop is where people get stuck, because you go from scarcity and a real need to provide to needing to uphold so you don't lose it all. And this is a continuous loop because it feels like scarcity that isn't actually there, but you're convincing yourself that there is scarcity. And so I want to bring awareness to that, because you're probably like, okay, that makes sense. If you're somebody who's been in business for a few years, if you are like, yeah, we're making a lot of money, but now I have to keep going because I can't lose it all, right? If these are your thoughts and these are your feelings, then you've experienced this loop. So this business first mindset that we carry really serves us in the beginning. Like I said, it serves you when you're building. You are like, burn the boats, burn the ships, whatever the saying is, right? Let's do this. And honestly, I feel like you should do that. I feel like there's a level of confidence that we have to build in ourselves when we start something, when we don't have the external data to support confidence yet. We need it. And so we go out and we get it. But it's not going to serve you in a freedom phase. You're out of the building phase now. You've reached capacity. You have financial abundance. You're providing for yourself and your family. And now what you're craving is freedom. And so when you think about that and you put these things next to each other of what does freedom and flexibility look like, and then you realize that you are handcuffing yourself and that you have control over your freedom and flexibility because you are the CEO of your business, then we ask ourselves, well, why? Why am I stuck here? And it's because you're afraid of losing it all. I understand that, like, you didn't quit a 9 to 5 or you didn't start this because you wanted it to own you. You weren't like, hey, I would love to start this thing that could just run me into the ground. That sounds amazing. You are the center of your business, which means if you fall apart, everything else is going to fall apart too. So in the same way that we think about upholding the productivity and the pushing and the grinding that got us there, we need to think about what we need to uphold ourselves. And then we need to start thinking about what are we actively putting in place to work smarter, not harder? Do we have the right support in business? Do we have the right team members in place? Are our operations, our systems, our services clear? Are there gaps? What inefficiencies are keeping us in this place where we feel like we're tied to this business running how we live? So it served you before, but it won't serve you now. And so we have to release this business first mindset. We have to build a life first mindset because simply, as far as I know, we only get one. And if you get to the end of your days and you look back, are you going to wish, if you had to choose, are you going to wish that you had spent more time enjoying your life? Or are you going to wish you had spent more time working? I only present it that way because I don't think anybody would say, I wish I had spent more time working. Because those people aren't listening to this podcast. Those people are floating. Those people are not people who are go-getters and ambitious and know that they have a bigger purpose. That's not you. Building, shifting your business, revamping your model of the way that your business is currently structured, along with the way that you are currently thinking, communicating, and leading, is one of the best ways that you can build a life first business. Because we have to look at all the different parts. So if we want to get rid of a business first mentality and we want to move to a life first mentality, we need to go back to our core value system. We need to be honest with ourselves about where we're not meeting our own standards, where we're not living up to our own expectations, where we're not being honest with ourselves about how we feel or if we're even allowing ourselves to feel. So I have a couple of prompts that I want you to journal on. If you can grab a sheet of paper, or if you're driving, pause this, come back to it. We can also throw them in the show notes for you. 2 questions. My first question is, where are you putting your business ahead of your own well-being or of your family? Where are you putting the business ahead of your own well-being or your family? I understand that every excuse in the book will come up when you think about this question again of, well, I have to work this many hours. I have to do it this way. And I think one of the coolest things is how mind-blowing it is for my clients to show them that there is a different way. For them to trust in me to change small things that create big results, to create a new way of thinking and leading that allows them to actually digest and enjoy the lives they've worked so hard to build. My second question for you is, what are you afraid will happen if you actually slow down? What are you afraid will happen if you actually slow down? This is where you need accountability, if I'm being honest, because change is hard and we avoid it. We avoid it because we would rather be in the discomfort that we know. But much like my client Gretchen said, she wishes she wouldn't have waited until it got so bad. I understand that our view of slowing down can be skewed. Slowing down in your business doesn't necessarily mean that you go from working 60 hours to 10. Sometimes it doesn't even mean that you're reducing your workload, your working hours, as much as it does your mental load and what you're carrying and how things are organized in the business and how it's affecting you mentally and emotionally. This is why you have to have an advisor that's willing to dig into all the different areas of your business and all the different areas of your thought process. Somebody that you can bring things to and say, this is what I'm experiencing. Knowing the results that I want, what do I do? So I want you to work on these two questions for me this week. Where are you putting the business ahead of your own well-being or your family? And what are you afraid will happen if you actually slow down? And if you're recognizing that you need a reset, that you are ready to hit the reset button, that you have been telling yourself that you should be able to figure it out on your own, and that if you just take another day off or you take this vacation, that when you come back, you're going to be able to think clearly, you're going to be able to figure it out. I get it. I've been there. I've told myself the same things. But if you want to truly reset, and if you want to build something that fuels not just the prosperity and the financial abundance, but actually allows you to enjoy your life, it allows you to live in your passion and your purpose through your work, that lights you up instead of drains you. This is why I developed the Life First Business Method. This is why my clients are working less, spending more time with their family, and still making just as much, if not more money. It's amazing what our minds can convince us of. But I promise you that when you have the right people in your corner and the right guidance, it can be different. If you want to talk more about us working together, what partnership with me would look like for your specific business, for your specific life, and how that's customized and personalized to you, where you currently are, where you want to be, you can book the clarity call at the link in my bio. Next week, we are talking about finding presence in your life and doing that without falling behind in your business, because that's the fear, right? We're afraid that if we slow down, we'll lose it all. So we're going to talk about that next week. Thank you guys for joining me, and I will talk to you next week.